Hi everyone, welcome back. Not welcome back, rather, welcome to our very first episode of our podcast, Law Made Simple, making sense of Malawi's legal maze. So, this is something that I want to put it across that you might hear some background noises. That's because we just started off and we don't really have any podcast gear, but we're working towards getting proper equipment. So you're going to bear with me for a few episodes if you hear some noises in the background, but we're working towards getting you clear audio. Anyway, so yes, I'm your host, Male, and today we're diving into something pretty serious but important, which is the death penalty in Malawi. We're talking about the legal side of the death penalty, how it's evolved in Malawi, and where we stand as of today. So stick around, and by the end of this episode, you know more about the death penalty than you probably thought you ever needed to. So, ready? Let's go. Let's start off with a brief history of the death penalty. The death penalty in Malawi goes way back to the colonial times. So back in the day, if you committed offenses like murder or treason, you get the death sentence. No questions asked. You can even say it was a default setting of such serious offenses. So when Malawi gained independence in 1964, we inherited a lot of these laws with us, including the death penalty. So anyway, fast forward a bit, and under the president Hastings Kamuzubanda, executions were still happening. The last recorded execution was in 1992. But after Malawi became a multi-party democracy in 94, actually no president since then has ever signed a death warrant. So the last recorded execution was in 92, and ever since then no president has signed any death warrant. While it's technically stayed in the books, we still have the death sentence in our laws, but it's just not enforced. Now, let's talk about one of the big turning points. In 2007, we had the case of Francis Kafantayeni and others versus Attorney General. And up until then, if you were convicted of murder, you automatically got a death sentence. No questions asked. You just got a death sentence when you committed murder or treason. But then this was a murder case. But the court in this case said, hold up, that's not fair. So they ruled that the mandatory death penalty was unconstitutional. So when you say it's unconstitutional, you mean it does not conform to the Constitution of Malawi, which is the supreme law of the land. That any law that is inconsistent with the Constitution shall, to the extent of such inconsistency, be rendered void or unconstitutional. Reasoning of this was that because it didn't really give judges any room to consider individual circumstances. Like maybe somebody committed the murder under duress or some mental health issues. It was just like a one-size-fits-all. You found guilty of murder and then that's it, that sentence. So this ruling in this particular case led to something called a resentencing project. So where a bunch of people who were sitting on the death row got new hearings, some were even released, some got reduced sentences. Though I think there were about 100 and something that actually got released. So stick around as we also look into recent cases after the break. So a recent case was that of Charles Khoviwa versus the Republic. This was a 2021 case where the Malawi Supreme Court of Appeal basically said the death penalty, yeah, we're done with that. We're done with that. It's not even supposed to exist. So the court in this case declared the death penalty to be unconstitutional. They said, and I quote, "The right to life is the mother of all rights." I mean, you can argue with that, right? Without life, what's the point of any of these other rights existing? So with this ruling, Malawi officially joined in the ranks of countries that have moved away from the death penalty. So you understand how huge this case is? It's a huge deal because it's not just about the practical side of things, like people not getting executed. It's a statement about human rights. The court was basically saying that no matter what someone has done, the state doesn't have the right to take their life. Okay, now, where exactly do we stand on death penalties right now? Well, the death penalty is still technically in our penal code, but thanks to the Khoviwa case, it's no longer enforceable. The penalty, rather, not the penal code, but the death penalty is no longer enforceable. That said, Parliament still needs to get around to officially amending this. We've had a recent amendment in the penal code, but it did not touch on the death penalty. My thinking of why we still have this law, why we still have the death penalty is, okay, it's kind of like when you clear out your closet, but you keep that one pair of jeans just in case. Yeah, so it's one of those punishments. Like we had, for example, we had cases where there were lots of killings of people with albinism. So these sentences, people would argue that they were to still be enforced with people that are practicing these killings, just to deter others from committing those type of offenses. That's why public opinion on this is still a bit divided. Yeah, it's still divided. So while courts have made their decision, rather, it's likely that the debate isn't quite over yet. So that's it for today's episode. Thanks for sticking with me on this deep dive into the death penalty in Malawi. We covered a lot: the colonial roots, the big legal reforms, the recent rulings that effectively ended the death penalty. It's a fascinating area of law that touches on human rights, justice, and how we see our society moving forward. I will always leave a disclaimer that this is not legal advice. This is just a discussion and my thoughts on the Malawian law, the Malawian legal reform. Okay, until next time, talk soon.